had a pretty rough start here to 2025. I think it's been challenging. We started the year with CES, which we try to normally go to, and pretty much right away as we got there, the LA fires broke out, and it was kind of just devastating. We weren't sure about driving home. We weren't sure what was going to happen, and we knew LA is only 150 miles away, and San Diego could be in that path as well. So I've kind of been thinking about that nonstop, walking around the house, seeing what I can do to prepare. And I'm happy to say that at least now the rains have finally come. It's been raining pretty much for 2 days straight. Juan, we're good? Live? Yeah? Cool. So the rains have been coming, and it's maybe there's some sign for hope. And I've been talking with people, and I think there's a general negativity, especially to the way this year started, which is always a shame. You hope every year starts, on a positive note. But I wanted to kind of share where I'm at with that, and also just engage with all of you and see how you're feeling about the year so far. Obviously, it's never easy, but hey, Candid Natural Wedding Photography, how's it going? Good to see you guys are joining. So, I just wanted to take a minute to chat with you guys. It's been about a month since we last did one of these. So let me just start by saying you should definitely be checking out our website. So really quick, we have a really cool giveaway. This might be my favorite giveaway we've had yet. It is a set of 4 brand new E-Range EV tires for your car. And, this is one of these initiatives that we've been trying to do. So if you just go to 2bitdavinci.com, you'll see it here, and under giveaways, you'll see the link. Totally free to join, and it's really an easy, awesome way to just be a part of the community, right? So we had a deal with this company, and we've been blown away with their tires because we actually made a couple of little scientific tests where we tested their claims of being quieter, and it actually was. It was about 2.5 decibels quieter than our stock tires that our Tesla came with, and 2 was the range claim. So we did this little loop a couple times, about 30 miles each way, and we saw about a 5% increase in range. So really cool set of tires, some really high-tech science behind them, and it's a really awesome value, especially if you need a new set of tires. So definitely you have 4 days left. Go check out our website and join. Like I mentioned, all it takes is like joining our mailing list. Something I try to do weekly, but I'll be honest, sometimes it's probably more like every 3 weeks or so. But that's it. Just join our mailing list. That way I feel like a closer connection with all of you guys, YouTube and all the different platforms that we have. We don't really have an audience. It's up to them, and something bad could happen, right? So we try to diversify the way we look at this. Also, just generally, if you want to support the show, 2bitdavinci.com, there's memberships you can join. There's a free tier just to have access, but any of the paid tiers give you access to all of our videos, completely sponsor and ad free. It's not even hosted on YouTube. It's a video on Vimeo. Let me just share that really quick. So this is a look at our website again. All of our videos up here. And if you're logged in with a paid account, like I mentioned, you'll see the videos completely ad free. It's one of the perks that we have. And it's an initiative that I started because I realized, again, Patreon is something also that we don't own. Like we actually don't own any of this. It's all other people's platforms. So we decided it's taken several months, but we've decided to move everything onto our website. So all of our giveaways on our website, right? The memberships, all of our calculators, our courses. Our first course is live, Electrician 101 for homeowners. We've mentioned that. So if you're looking for, courses on how to learn how to do things yourself, being a little bit of a Renaissance man, I've always tried to learn as much as I can, and I've decided to kind of share that with you. So the first course is on just how to approach electrical work around your house as an owner builder. And the next one is on solar. That's what I'm really excited about this one. We're in the process of adding to our solar system, and we've been filming everything. We're going to talk about kind of calculations, how to approach it, how to plan, how much you need, the technology behind all of it, but also actually how to install it. So we'll have different chapters. It'll be a really cool course that we should have live probably the next 2 or 3 weeks. Also, so there's just a lot of cool things happening. We're trying to diversify. We're 7 years old now as a company. Juan, can you believe that? 7 years. And I've learned a lot about how difficult the business is. Running a channel on YouTube and having employees and stuff isn't always easy. But I think if we approach it this way, we have a good shot of being profitable and being around. So just really quickly looking at some of the comments. U-Haul says, "Is this a premiere?" No, it's just a live stream. So how's it going? I can actually chat with you. And Raymond says, "Good afternoon, Ricky. How's it going, Ray? Always appreciate seeing you." Jack from SFO, how's it going, Jack? Curious if you're getting any rain as well. We're getting quite a bit of rain now. Paul says, "Are you here to whine about the rain?" I would never whine about the rain in Southern California. Rain is a absolute blessing. Frederick, how's it going? He says hello from Tanzania. It's amazing. I wonder how you're doing. Hopefully, you guys are doing all right. So, yeah, I've been watching some videos and live streams this year. I'll just share a quick little story. Like I mentioned, coming home from CES was stressful because we were like looking at the weather and looking at the forecast and like closures to see if we'd have a problem getting home from Las Vegas to San Diego. And luckily everything worked out okay. We got back, but U-Haul says you're in SoCal, you're not evacuated. No, I'm in San Diego, and it's been okay. And hopefully with the rains, things are dying down. But when I came back from CES, it's always nice because you get to see a lot of YouTubers, your friends. Some people maybe you just watch, they don't know who you are, but you just get to meet them. There's one gentleman who runs a channel called Bitwit, a really cool guy named Kyle, who I've been watching for a long time, especially when I'm looking to build a new computer or getting a new graphics card. He makes really cool content. And he was also there at CES, except when he went home, his house was gone. His house was burned down. And I just couldn't imagine. Could you imagine just taking a quick little trip? I think he flew. So hopped on a plane thinking nothing's, no big deal, and coming home to having lost everything, literally everything. It's not just the house, it's all the stuff inside. He was walking through the cameras and lights and stuff that he had in his studio and how it all went down. So that just was heartbreaking. And as I get older, I feel I think about this stuff a lot more often. So I've been spending the last couple of weeks just looking around my house, doing everything I can to be more prepared, because that's really ultimately all we can do. Mark says, hello from Indiana. Love your tech videos. I'm not sure if you're talking about 2-Bit Tech, our second channel, but very awesome. I'll pass that along. And Keith says, greetings from Australia. I'll be coming to Australia in April for the Fully Charged show. So we'll have to, maybe you'll be there as well. Yeah, it's tough. It's been tough. So far, we've been unaffected here in San Diego, but there were some fires. There was a fire south of us, the border fires, and there was a couple in northern San Diego as well. It's just a tough time. And I'll tell you, I kind of look at the comments and stuff to see, and I've been generally pretty blown away at how positive people have been. I know California gets a lot of crap from people for various reasons and stuff, but I really feel like people came together and were very supportive, and it was awesome. I've been thinking about ways that we can help. Like, we have elderly neighbors who maybe can't clear trees and dead brush and stuff, and maybe volunteering as a company, everybody, all of us, we stop working for a day, a month or two, and we just go look around and help people. Like, we all have the power to do all that we can. That's something that brings me a lot of optimism. And that's kind of the question of the live stream is, 2025, should we be optimistic? And I really want to engage with all of you guys on this one because, I made a video. I had recorded a video about Tesla and their positioning and the global auto economy for 2025 with a buddy of mine named Brian, who runs a channel called Future Aza. We filmed this in December, and I finally published it. The timing was funny. A lot of the comments were pointing out, with Elon's salute and all these things, and it kind of just makes me wonder. I want to be in touch with all of you guys, and I want to get a finger on the pulse of how you guys are all feeling about stuff as well. And I'm definitely want to be sensitive to all of that. I think of Tesla as this technology company who probably single-handedly made electric vehicles possible. I never think about all the political stuff. That's just not how I am. I don't think about politics very much. I find it pretty boring. But please do share. I'll address any comments and stuff. That's one of the nice things about live streams is you get a chance to just kind of see where people are at, which is nice. I know I feel like everything's become politicized. Everything is complicated. Everything feels divisive, which I hate. That's just not how I am. I've always just loved a good conversation. Ultimately, that's kind of why I started this YouTube channel. Early on, it was talking about some of the things that I saw with electric vehicles, and it's really never changed. Jeff King says, "Hi Ricky, loved your thoughts on the hardening your homes for fires and stuff. Clean up some dead leaves." Jeff, I'm so glad to hear that, man. That's really cool. I think I have a couple of neighbors who watch me as well who told me the same exact thing, who've been out cleaning up and stuff. And you know, we can't control negative things that happen to us. All we can really do is how we approach it or what we learn from it. And that's kind of the only thing that can keep, for me personally, what my grief process is. Normally I really stress out and overthink things for a couple of days. And then at some point I have to flip a gear, switch of gears and just start to think, what can I do to better be prepared? And that's kind of where I am now as well. I've been thinking about getting rid of more of my wood siding. I have a little bit of wood siding. Maybe I have a fence that needs to be replaced. And now I'm thinking of spending the extra money and getting a concrete cinder block fence. And there's things like that we can all learn from. Yeah, it's good to see all of you guys on here. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions or, what are your thoughts about 2025? I feel like it's been a very tumultuous start. New Year's Eve feels like a lifetime ago. I can't believe it wasn't even a month, but New Year's Eve feels like it was a year and a half ago at this point for me. Kind of the time warping nature of tragic stuff that happens, and we've had our fair share. But you guys probably know this about me. I'm a wildly optimistic person. I see bad things happening and stuff, but I try to always remember that by and large things are going to be okay. The rains really helped with that. My background right now is a rainy forest, and it's kind of how the day feels, but in the most positive way. Somebody mentioned whining about the rains, but yeah, it's been amazing. So Cafe Racer says, next 4 years are going to be great. Drill, baby, drill. So let's talk about that. I don't talk about, in my normal videos, I leave a lot of my personal opinions out of it because that's not really, there's always bias, and, we'll have bias, but I kind of just make stories that are interesting and try to, engage conversations. But I will tell you, here's a little thought experiment that I always like to do, right? Imagine if you ran a gasoline car in your garage and sat there for any period of time. It would go very badly very quickly because burning gasoline is a danger. It is very bad for the air. Now, your garage is a small little space, and your car would probably kill you in like under an hour, probably. So now just blow that up to the world and have 7 billion of us burning, in power plants in our own cars all around the world. That air quality is a serious problem. I was reading an article about how a lot of people have blamed cigarettes for all these problems, like lung cancer rates and stuff. But the article was making the argument. What nobody thinks about is, cigarettes fine, but how about just air quality? How about the air quality in big cities where smog and pollution reigns supreme? So I'm not a believer in bans. Drill, baby, drill. I understand all thoughts and stuff. And I don't think we should ban gas cars. I've always told you guys I don't believe in that. But I love my electric cars, and I'm happy because I get to charge at home and not pay any money. I have one gas car left that I use for Home Depot runs. It's an old Honda Pilot that I use for like getting lumber and stuff. And that car, I'll have to pump gas maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And it was like $88 the last time I just did it a couple days ago. And it was brutal, and it reminded me how horrible it is and how much it sucks to pay for gasoline. Yes, I've spent a lot of money on my solar panels and stuff, but I get to charge my cars strategically when the sun is up every day, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, So we probably are not helping the climate, and we should be thinking about all that stuff, right? We should be this planet of ours is so special. It's a rarity in the world to have a planet this beautiful and this perfect, this close to our sun, with enough mass to maintain an atmosphere, with enough iron in the core for a magnetosphere. I mean, it is a truly rare and special thing, and we should preserve it and protect it. That's a core belief of mine, right? I try to minimize my waste. I bring metal water bottles, and I just do my part, right? And I think a lot of us probably do. But hey, Kevin, how's it going from Southeast Florida? Southeast. So I'm guessing. I'm curious if you got any snow or if you were too far south. But yeah. Let's see. There's something rental truck. Trying to follow the chat here. But look, I guess we can kind of start with the. We're officially now in the second Donald Trump era. So Cafe Racer is optimistic and he's excited for the next 4 years. Love it. Love that. Love the optimism. I'm also optimistic. There's going to be some things that are going to be contentious, I think, and that'll sway us. But I'm kind of the belief, like, let's wait and see. And no snow this far south. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to be optimistic and hope that things work out well. Now, there are some tangible things that will change. There's been discussions that the EV tax credit, for example, might go away. I haven't heard as much about the ITC, the solar tax credit for people who get solar installed. Potentially, I guess that could be as well. But since that existed before the IRA, Trump might be less prone to change that. But so Pablo's on. How's it going, Pablo? Pablo, I think now you work for Juicebox, I believe. But when I met Pablo, he was working with a company called Good Faith Energy. We had a chance to meet. Where was that, Pablo? Remind me. But we had a chance to meet in person. I got to meet his wife. It was really cool. But he says, thoughts on utility scale BESS with Trump in office. So I had this question recently. Somebody brought up, what happens if you have a Tesla Powerwall, or I have Franklin watt-hour batteries? What happens to batteries if your house catches fire? It's something I'm going to research and look into. Actually, I'm sorry, fire has been on my mind, as you can tell. There are certain things I've taken. My batteries were outside, and what I might do is install some sprinkler systems or something that I could control. Oh yeah, it's Vancouver. We met at the Fully Charged show. That's right, Pablo. Appreciate you. I think at this point, we should be nearing a place where some of these technologies shouldn't really need the president in office to stand on. So for electric cars, for example, I think we're pretty much there. If you got like a rear-wheel drive base model of some of the EV options out there, it should be very comparable to a gasoline car. And when you factor that there's no maintenance to do and you can save money in a lot of ways, it should be good. Water on lithium fires often makes it worse. That's a great photography. So that's a good point. I have heard that as well. Curious to see what the best approach is, but I'll think about that more and maybe make a video about it. Yeah. Ultimately, what we have to remember is energy is when you try to put a lot of energy, which wants to be spaced out into a small container, it has potential to be dangerous, right? There was a gentleman, I forget his name, on LinkedIn who was arguing about how electric vehicles were such a bad idea because look at the electric vehicles that caught fire during the Palisade fires. And I was looking at every report, trying to find data and stuff, and I was like, what is this guy talking about? I think there were like 2 or 3 electric cars, but there were 1,000 gas cars, and he was just picking and choosing. That's the kind of stuff that I hate. There's no reason to make this comment political. The problem was that people in gas cars also just abandoned their cars and left when this happened. And if you abandon your car on the road and fire trucks can't get through, that's really, really bad news. And this happened quite a bit. And gas cars are blowing up and catching fire as they do, because again, gasoline is a very dense store of energy, which is what makes it amazing. But it's also dangerous. And so fire safety is something that we should really be considering and thinking about. Lord knows I have, for sure. And shed away from your main buildings for fire safety. Yeah, so Cafe Racer, it's a great call. I don't have a shed away from my house, but I have this little hallway between. I have this little hallway between like my garage and the office, and I have the batteries mounted there. But what I've done recently is I've removed wood siding and put in like 2 inches of concrete and stucco, just to give a little bit of a barrier. And I think there's probably more that I can still do. But these lithium iron phosphate batteries are honestly really, really safe. And what I should probably be considering is the perimeter. Like if the fire got to the point where they're at my batteries, I think it's probably too late for everything. But it's interesting, yeah. One thing I've always loved about our audience here, our Tuba Da Vinci viewers, is I always tell my wife whenever a new video goes out in the first few hours, I'll browse the comments and I'm just like blown away at how smart you guys are, how how much context you provide. And rock wool insulation is super fire resistant, says Gnome Chump. Yeah, that's a great call. So I currently have a lot of fiberglass, which I think is decent, but rock wool it's literally melted and strained rock. So it's really good at fire resistance, and I'm probably going to make that switch as well. It's a great point. But let's all try to be optimistic, right? This year is just getting started, and I think it's going to be dynamic. There's a lot of concern I know that people have. And some people are really happy. It's kind of a 50-50 split. The last time I went live, I ran a poll asking if you voted for Trump or for Harris, and I think it was just like the American people. It was like 54-46 or something like that. It was perfectly split, which is amazing. I actually take pride in knowing that my audience is not just an echo chamber. There's quite a diversity of thought. If you guys notice, I never talk about climate change in the videos. I just talk about the engineering. And the reason is what I found is the minute I say climate change is happening, it's real and it sucks and we're X, Y, and Z, you will turn off people who don't want to hear about that, right? And I don't want to do that. What I instead want to do is talk about how like solar just rules, man. I am currently in the process of putting in another 7 kilowatts of solar. And the reasoning is I now have 2 electric vehicles to charge. We have a pool heat pump. Like we're trying to be 100% off grid. Plus we have a gas furnace to replace X, Y, and Z. But I mean, solar just rocks. Whoever you voted for, you should be in complete favor of solar. It's the most incredible technology. It's a steady state slab of glass you put on your roof, and it produces energy every day for 30 years. It's insane. It's one of the coolest things. I have always said I like solar and like home storage more than electric vehicles. Electric vehicles they're just good. It's fine. And there's nothing to it. You buy it, you drive it, right? It's not that interesting to me. Home solar is one of the absolute favorite things. And it's something everybody should be behind, whether it's for energy independence, right? If you're a conservative and you believe in independence and kind of freedom, self-reliance, what's better than a thing that charges up? We are in the process of doing a massive rewiring of our whole home panel. So over the weekend, we had no power. So I had EcoFlow batteries all around the house to power the fridge because we had to shut down everything and redo our main service panel, which for us is a span. And the reason was because when we first got it installed, it was okay. But then when we added our Franklin watt-hour batteries to it, the installer did a very poor job, just ran everything very poorly. And I wanted to fix everything and make it perfect. So we're in the process of doing that. And when we didn't have power, the office, which runs on where I am right now, sorry, I'm pointing the other way, ran on EcoFlow batteries, and it has solar on the roof to the battery. So even though the grid was off, this office never lost power. We obviously weren't running all the equipment at full bore like we normally do. We're trying to be a little bit conservative. But the sun came up, charged the batteries, and we were able to work, and the internet was in here. All the internet equipment is in this office, and it was pretty amazing. It's a cool technology. So my thought process is people have told me though, like you can't be on the fence. You have to pick one side or the other. Like I should say, I love Elon Musk or I hate Elon Musk. And I never do either, right? I might tell you, like, if I see you at a show, I might give you more insight into how I feel about stuff. But I normally am kind of on the fence of stuff. And my thought has always been, I would hate to lose viewers who hate it or love it or whatever. Because then you just get an echo chamber, and that's not interesting. I've seen some YouTube channels that just completely lean into one side. And when you read the comments, you think, wow, they have such peace in their comment section. But then I think, it's so boring. There's no diversity of thought. It's just all people who believe in one thing coming together. And I'd love for this to be a place where we can bring up complicated topics, right? I'll give you an example. I made a video and I was kind of worried about this because I know people love high-speed rail, but I made a video about why high-speed rail might not be a good idea in the US. I've thought about this a lot. I travel a lot. I've seen high-speed rail work really well in places. Beach Crow says, solar rocks. My net metering electric bill is a $4,000 credit after 6 years. That's amazing. Jorge says, the only thing coal is good for is filtering water and making whiskey. But man, is it good at that. Yeah, carbon. It's amazing for both of those things. You know, I'll tell you, coal is harder to justify because coal has a longer replenishment cycle. But I'm not really that opposed to natural gas as a backup. Let's say, for example, a volcano erupted or it was cloudy for a month straight. If it was cloudy for a month straight, my solar would start to struggle. We'd have to make some real compromises to stuff. And large scale, if we had natural gas reserves and natural gas peaker power plants that we could just turn on and off, and by and large have solar and batteries, but then in an emergency situation, be able to flip over to natural gas, it would be amazing. That's the sort of engineering that I like to see, right? Redundancy, backup, fail-safe. Those are all really good things. In fact, one of the reasons why I went with my Franklin watt-hour home battery system is it has it has a generator port. So I could actually install like a diesel generator, keep a couple of gallons of diesel for the worst case scenario, and switch over when the solar is not sufficient and have a generator backup as well. I've never done it because it's a lot of money and I probably don't need it, but I just think about backup. Like I always kind of go down a checklist of what could all go wrong. Okay, let's see what happens if that goes wrong. Then what do you do if that goes wrong? And I just try to address it. So being resilient is a powerful thing. That's something that we should all be in favor of. And I will say, I think Trump generally seems less anti renewable energy than he did his first term. So I think I'm generally pretty optimistic. So Tom says, not wanting to talk about climate change or calling it that because it will offend some is wild if you claim to be on science side of life. No, Tom. So think about this, Tom. There are people, and I know because I've seen comments. I've seen comments of people who hate climate change, who hate all this green stuff, and who don't believe in any of this crap, who will watch my videos because this new solar thing or this new, was interesting, who've then gotten solar because they want to be off the grid and they don't want to be beholden to something, right? That's the point. Your motivation for doing something is your own, right? And if I tell you my motivation is only because I believe in sustainability and that climate change is real, well, that might be the case. But anyone who doesn't believe that might not listen to the message. And that's my thought process. There are people who will get solar. I see these ads for Patriot batteries. It's great marketing, right? They're clearly trying to say, have battery backup for, it's basically a battery for conservatives. It's like an EcoFlow for conservatives. And you know what? I think it's fantastic because if you have a couple kilowatt hours of energy storage in a battery, it's a powerful feeling. You could power your fridge for days, and it's a powerful thing. All hope for humanity, says Ricky. Trump literally canceled permits for tons of wind farms, including projects currently under construction, just the other day. So a permit for a wind farm, that sounds like, wouldn't that be on the state level? Well, I don't know what the federal government would have to do with that. I'll have to look into it. I haven't heard about that, but that sucks. That's terrible. Wind farms are something we're definitely going to need in the mix for sure. But that sucks. Like that, there's no easy way to slice that. Peter says wind farms are an eyesore. Interesting. I think they're cool. I've always thought wind farms they look kind of cool. And in certain parts of the country, especially in highly windy areas, where my parents live in Northern California comes to mind, it could be a huge, nice, easy, free way of producing energy. So they are federal permits because they are on federal land or on private land adjacent to federal land. using joint funding. Yeah, I mean that is the challenge with more complex things is you have to have all these land rights and federal land and permits from the federal authorities and stuff. That does complicate things. Maybe that's a good answer. This is why, like personally, I love the idea of keeping things simple. Okay, we need wind farms because most homes can't produce their own energy. So if you're building new homes and new shopping malls and all these things, and you don't produce your own energy, well, we'll have to. This will keep happening. I could go once this new solar system is online in the next couple of days. I could probably disconnect from the grid and never need them. Obviously, that costs a lot of money, and it's not practical for all people who can't afford that. But how about businesses? Like, what if we incentivize people to cover warehouses with solar panels? How is that not already happening, right? Maybe there's things that we could do, microgrids. Maybe there's things that we could do that don't require massive, because the larger a project becomes, the higher the risk of it not completing, of permits falling through, and everything else. But I'm with you. All hope for humanity. That sucks. I'd love to see that reversed. Hopefully there's something there, but I'll look into it and I can cover it in a video. I appreciate you bringing that up. So CMO says, as a person politically in the middle, what I have seen from this chat is that anti-Trumpers bash him and the Trump supporters ask questions. Let's think about that for a moment. That's probably fair. I would say I'm very centrist. I think I've told you guys this before. I'm very centrist. I think there's probably a healthy level of knowledge or wisdom from both sides. But I have seen that people really dislike, the people I know who dislike Trump really dislike Trump. And my belief is like, let's give him a chance and we can talk about the issues. For example, instead of just blanket hating somebody, All Hope for Humanity mentioned, right, that they're pulling permits for wind farms. That's a great example of a good conversation. I didn't even know about that. This is why I love you guys. This is why I try to go live whenever I can, because I always say a lot of you guys probably should run the channel, and I should be in the audience learning from you. So I appreciate that. Let's see. So Sativa Girl says, why are houses not built in the ground and not on top of it? That's a good question. It's a very good question. So there's challenges to everything. Like the minute you go undergrade, you've got a lot of moisture concerns and stuff. Like we have one room that's kind of 3 or 4 feet underground. It's not quite fully underground, but it stays cool. The temperature-wise, it's the best room in the house. Hot, it's never hot. It's never cold. It's always kind of the same temperature. But it's also, I mean, there's no visible light, right? You don't have windows. There's no perfect answer to it. But a lot of homes that are built, like earth ships are built that way for that reason. The earth is an amazing regulator of temperature, and it could work out. A lot of homes do have basements, especially on the East Coast. So Peter says the short answer is it's more expensive. Yeah, I mean, now we're talking about excavating land instead of just pouring a footing. But it also might come down to personal preference. I mean, if we started building holes underground, if you will, like almost like bunkers, would people want to buy it? Would they want to live in it? Is a good question. But great question. I think it's interesting. Let's see what else we got. So Gnome says, I wonder if Elon can convince Trump on nuclear power. This is another really interesting one. Let's do I want to do a poll. First poll of the day. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Start a poll. Okay. Should we build more nuclear power plants? Okay, so no, nuclear is a bad idea. Okay, let's see if that worked. Not sure. Okay, here we go. So nuclear is a good example of a technology that I find to be divisive, and probably for good reason. Yeah, I'm really curious how this vote goes. It was starting off hot. It's leveling out. We have 15 votes so far. I bring this up because I have a video planned actually to talk about this a little bit, but I'll give you guys a little bit of a. Yeah, U-Haul says nuclear waste shelf life. Bingo. So nuclear energy, when it was, when we first, broke the atom, when we figured out how to be able to keep up chain reactions and have nuclear fission reactors, it was an amazing thing. I remember the commercials and like the literature was, energy so cheap and so abundant that it'll be too cheap to meter, meaning it wouldn't even make sense to try to bill somebody. We would just have so much of it. That never happened, partially because nuclear power plants are expensive to build. But I mean, back in the days when we were building them, we had to be strategic about where we were putting them. And obviously there's, we were still learning. So we weren't just building them as fast as we could. We'd build a couple, learn from them, keep growing. But a lot has changed from the early golden age of nuclear, because now we live in an age where nuclear has been kind of regulated into oblivion. It's so difficult to get a new plant built. Photography says fusion is just 20 years away. I think he's kind of making a joke here, but this gets to something that I think we have to remember about the future of technology, especially, is that nuclear has gotten so expensive to build that we kind of don't do it, right? Japan has been hurting in a major way because Japan was, largely nuclear. And after Fukushima, they realized how vulnerable they were, especially because of typhoons and earthquakes. I mean, they live in a very difficult region of the world where, in terms of, earthquakes and just seismic activity. And so now they're like scrambling to try to figure out how to offset that production. In other parts, like in Europe, it's so expensive. I mean, the regulations, the permits, the process, the approvals, all that has gotten so insane that it's just so difficult to build new nuclear power plants, which is kind of a shame, because I guess you could say and maybe there's ways around it, right? Like modular nuclear. We're talking with a company called Radiant, who's proposing building modular reactors that you could just kind of truck in, set them up, and produce smaller scale nuclear power without the massive infrastructure. But think about this. So nuclear fuel, uranium or whatever it is, has like 20 years of useful life, and then for thousands of years, it is radioactive enough to be harmful, but not enough to produce energy, right? So for 20 years of value, thousands of years of storage. Now, Finland, there are some countries in Europe that understand how to do this right, and they've invested billions and billions to long-term storage facilities, but we don't have that here in the U.S. We were supposed to have Yucca Mountain in Nevada, and that never happened. So I have a nuclear power plant that's recently been decommissioned called San Onofre here in San Diego, and the promise was build it, run it, don't worry. By the time your fuel's spent, we'll have this. The federal government promised to have this facility for storing it. And that never happened. They never did it. And so now instead, San Diego has nuclear fuel sitting here on the beach right by San Onofre. Now, they've tested, it's safe, right? It's encased properly. They've gone through all the checklist of all the safety procedures to make sure that the waste is safe. But it is on a seismically active area in San Diego by the beach. We could have a little, we could have a tsunami or something, right? And it could potentially cause damage. But think about this. Forget all that. Let's say nothing bad happens. SDG&E, our energy company, has to pay for 24/7 security in that area, because it's kind of you could have a terrorist attack or something, right? It would be a very vulnerable site. So the 20 years of making energy, we got that, cool. Now, for basically forever, for the next 1,000 years, they have to pay armed guards, 24-hour security surveillance to watch this. And guess who's going to pay for that, right? The people that live here. We're going 300 years from now, some kid and some family is going to be paying a little tariff to offset the cost of this thing. That's the problem with it, right? It sounds like it should be great, and it is great. I love nuclear fission energy. I've always been a fan, but it's complicated is the point. And that's something that I think is my goal on this channel. If there's one goal that I have, why I do this, is for you guys to leave videos or complex topics with, it's complicated, right? Anybody who comes out and says they have the answer hasn't thought about it enough, because there are pros and cons to stuff, and I'm seeing some great conversations about like thorium, for example, is something that I've covered in the past, but I think it's time to do another one about that. That's a great call. Glenn says they should store it here in Australia. We have very stable land, pay us rent, we're responsible. That's interesting. For a long time, China was taking a lot of the plastic trash here in the U.S. They stopped doing that. But they were making money to deal with that. Potentially, you could be a country that, and Australia is a big landmass. A lot of it is kind of under developed. Most of Australia is on the coast, and right in the middle is just massive outback. Although, I'd hate to see such beautiful lands tarnished, but it's interesting. There might be business that we don't even make our own nuclear waste, but we'll store yours and charge you for the privilege. So Rockhead says, I'm ignoring his queries. Let me scroll up here to find Rockhead Regolith. Let's see. While I look up here, do you mind just sharing it again? I don't see it. Yeah, could you just repeat your question? So Ariana says, if Scandinavia can fix storage for waste, then so can the U.S. This gets to one. You guys, I love America. I think there's something about the American mindset that I just love. There's such a vastness and boundlessness to what we do. But if there's one, I'll be critical of America. We suck at things like this. We're all about when things are shiny and new, but maintenance or repairs, America sucks at that, because the problem is we're driven by profits, and it's quarterly profit, right? So who wants to be, for example, all of the California energy companies need to be investing in burying electrical lines underground. But who will do it? Well, you want to be the CEO that had the worst quarter ever, where profit sunk, cash on hand went down, and no new revenue was created. That's the problem. I think we're not great at keeping things up. Our infrastructure generally is in bad shape. Our dams, our roads, electrical infrastructure, all kind of falls by the wayside. It's a sad state of affairs, but it does happen. And so I wish maybe we could, right? And we should want that. We should strive for that. Yeah, but it's tough for the U.S. So we lead the way in the front, right? In the lifetime of engineering, you've got engineers who design, build, develop, right? Those people are up in front building the next generation of an aircraft. Then you have like maintainers, people who develop maintenance intervals, right? Reliability-centered maintenance, RCM groups that come in and try to figure out how to keep things on track. I'd say when it comes to the innovation on the forefront side, America's tops. Nobody innovates like we do. But when it comes to the maintenance part, the less sexy, less glamorous parts, that's normally where it kind of gets hairy. So Rockhead, again, I'm hoping you'll ask your question again, because I don't seem to find it, but I'll look, and let's see. Peter says Europe is probably best at maintenance. I would agree, Peter. Maybe Asia. I think Japan is probably the best at it. They actually take pride in it. For them, it's a source of pride to do what they do. Their trains are the best in the world. They've never had a fatality in all the years of the operation of the Shinkansen, right? So, but Europe and Asia, absolutely. Peter says China is terrible at maintenance. I think China actually might kind of in some ways fall into the U.S. thing, where they love to be building out in front, and the next shiny new thing always takes precedent, and the old items in disrepair kind of fall by the wayside. So that's interesting. I want to go to China this year. Oh, let's talk a little about that. I try to be transparent with you guys about what we're doing, why we do the things that we do. I've mentioned that I have a staff, I have of people. Recently, with some of the courses that I want to make, and some of the, we have an electrician on staff now who's literally right now at work on our panel upgrades and stuff, so we can make content around batteries and solar and do it more in house instead of constantly bidding out contracts to electricians and stuff, which I got tired of. So we have a team of 5 people. And we want to cover really cool stories. So we're going to Geneva, to CERN, to go visit the Large Hadron Collider, the antimatter labs. That's happening in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So that is something that we're really excited about. It's going to be expensive to get out there. They're not helping us with anything. So that's why if you see this video is brought to you by and you see a sponsor, the sponsors help us make all this happen. Rockhead, I have posted it more than 25 times. I see these messages. Can you just, I don't know what's going on with, let's see, I don't know. So I see that I see your post that you said you posted more than 25 times, but I do not see your actual post. I see 3 messages from you. Let's scroll. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I don't see your messages. It says Linda and Stuart Resnick. I'm not sure who that is, but let me know. Interesting. Filtered words. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Let me know what happens. So yeah, we try to be transparent about like why we do the things that we do. When we have cool deals with cool products, we always tell the companies, hey, how about a giveaway? Can you help us with it, or we'll pay for it ourselves? But we try to give things away. We've done several giveaways this year. Pool robots, batteries, solar. We did right now the EV tires, probably the highest value giveaway so far. But I forgot my trail of thought here, what I was talking about. But yeah, we've got, if you post a link, it won't show up. Got it. That my wife just mentioned. That's okay. That might be what's happening. So Rockhead Regolith, I promise you, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't see anything from you. Gyrotron drilling for thermal power says necessary evil. Yeah, that's something that there's been some. I think there might be some developments there. There's a company that is using gyrotrons and kind of to help with the geothermal process to get geothermal energy. It's something that we wanted to cover in an on-site. So maybe if my wife Claudia, if you're there, let's should take note to reach back out to those guys that we're working on. I forget the name of the company now, but yeah, there's some interesting stuff. There's a couple that has a pistachio company. Oh, they own all the water. Oh, okay. Okay. So the question here is about California, I think, water rights and stuff. And there's some shady things that happen. The water in our aquifers underground is kind of everyone's, right? But if I start a water bottling company and I'm sucking all the water out for everybody and selling it to other people, is that fair? It's one of the questions that we have a lot of here in California. Water obviously is our big challenge, and I'll look into it. I don't know if you guys have watched Goliath, the show with Billy Bob Thornton, but I think it was season 2 or 3. It's about water in California, and the farmers and some of the back and forth, and it's based on some true stories. So I'll look into it for sure. I'm a firm believer that we can, if we have good priorities, we can do the things we want to do. That fire beer that I made, I mentioned that California has $220 billion of tax revenue a year. $220 billion. That's about $100 billion more than the second state, New York, right? $220 billion. You don't think we can solve our problems? Of course we can, right? The problem ultimately is that we have to have good priorities. And in my mind, water management, repairing dams, that just is more important than other things. It just is. That has to have its place. So um, that will be a challenge that will come up often. I've got a video plan to talk about this a little bit, but some of the state of disrepair of our dams in California, it's pathetic. It's truly pathetic. And we're talking about, $50 million to fix, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. Not when not when we're doing the things that we do. And the money that we have potentially to us. U-Haul says Paramount Plus Landman. That is high. That's a show that I'm probably going to start like this week because I'm fascinated by stories like this. I've watched clips of it. So anybody who hasn't watched, I actually love Billy Bob Thornton as an actor. I think he's fantastic. He's probably not Daniel Day-Lewis, but he's really good. And so he plays this oil tycoon or this oil prospector, I think it is. And he has some really interesting insights into, he kind of like, for example, he talks crap about wind turbines and says that if wind turbines were really the answer, then the oil companies would be building them by the thousands. There's a flaw in that thought process, which is wind turbines are something that are democratized. Anybody could build a wind turbine. But oil companies, the difference is if you own the land where the oil is under, you have a monopoly. No one can compete with you, right? You have a moat in business. And that's why they will not give it up. Whereas, like, guess what? The sun is going to shine on my house just as much as yours. So I don't need you or your oil. I could produce my own power. That's the democratizing power of some of these technologies. And that's why oil companies don't think that wind turbines are the answer. It's not because wind turbines don't work. They do. But if they really started to build those, so would everybody else, and nobody would need their oil, right? Ultimately, that business value, the business proposition of your or the moat, the competitive advantage of your business is something that people who have it will not give up. But anyway, it's a fun show that I definitely want to cover in the future. Ali Reza says, hi, Ricky. I don't know if this is something that you'd entertain, but I'd like to see you and Matt Farrell debate over what is the best place to spend government money for energy. That's fantastic. Matt will be on this show soon. Matt and I are very, very good friends. We talk all the time. We hung out at CES. And we used to have a podcast together back in the days before I was full-time. So it was a little bit tough for me. And then now he has a podcast with his brother. So he's a very busy man. But yeah, I'll have Matt on. And I'd love to talk about that. Because I think him and I will probably disagree on some things and agree on some things. So it should be fun. But Alreza, you bet. I'll definitely do that. So Simon Waddington says, America does not invest in maintaining anything they build. The infrastructure bill should have been at least $4 trillion to hard infrastructure maintenance only, and that was to bring stuff up to C grade. Yeah, this is the problem. And I'll tell you what, in a lot of ways, it's kind of just like people, right? There's this thing that people always say, Ricky, you don't understand government. Debt isn't bad like it is for personal, like family debt. And I would say BS. Why would you run a balanced budget? That should be the goal. Everybody should, your family should run a balanced budget. You should have a surplus at the end of the year. Government should too. Especially when you make as much money as America. Like, just think about how much money we're talking about. So I'm with you. The problem is, it's just like people, right? If you have, everyone's always thinking about the next shiny thing. Oh, I want to buy a new couch set. Well, what about the dining table we bought last year? And look at it. Should we refinish it now? That's yesterday's news. I want a new blank, right? It's human nature to want the next thing, the next shiny thing. It's very hard for people to think about maintaining what they already got. That's not sexy or glamorous, but that is what we should be doing. I'm with you 100%. Simon, we have to do this because ultimately there'll come a point when these lack of investments will show where we can't grow. Like, for example, imagine how bad it'll look if America can't scale up new AI data centers fast enough and China wins the AI war, right? But that would happen if you don't have the electrical infrastructure to support it. So that's the sort of thing where it'll start to matter, and it might be too late if you don't invest in it ahead of time. So, yeah. So Disc a lot says, it's sad that you admit to censoring yourself and you don't see that as a problem. Why be afraid of what people that don't do research think? So again, I'm not censoring myself. I'm trying to reach people who don't agree with me, right? That's the difference. If I say everything that I believe in, then the people that agree with me will be my followers, and I would probably be better off, honestly, on YouTube, because my everything would just kind of flow the right way. But I actually think it's really important to try to provide cool information. The power of engineering is nonpartisan, right? There's no Republican or Democrat to engineering. If you build a better product, then you'll win, right? The electric car is just the better product. Now, maybe there's some exceptions. If you have a 30-gallon diesel F300 and you tow stuff all the time, maybe the electric version is not there yet. But like by and large, for the average daily driver, the electric car is vastly superior. And so if I were to come out and say that, oh, climate change, don't drive gas because you'll burn gas and it's for climate change, well, then I've immediately turned, the minute somebody hears that, they go, oh, okay, done with that. But if instead I say, this car has 1,000 horsepower, never needs oil changes, costs less to fuel than a Prius, will smoke a Ferrari, and never need any work done on it. That's such a good, oh, and you can charge it at home for free with some panels you put on your roof. Come on, right? That's literally my reality. That's what I love about electric vehicles. And I think there was this argument that one of my viewers made that Trump being president would actually be good for electric vehicles because now Republicans would actually maybe consider buying them, right? And that's kind of my point. I really appreciate your insight. I'm trying to find that comment. It's sad to see that so disc a lot, uno me. I really appreciate you saying that. That's a fascinating question and a thought process. And maybe I'm wrong or I'm not clarifying this enough. But I want to appeal to people who go, damn, that is a cool thing. Maybe I'll go drive it. I don't believe in blank and my dad works at the oil companies and I'm not, I don't believe in this other thing, but I'll drive that for that thing, right? It's just like there's a lot of doomsday prepper type people who are typically more conservative leaning who have solar panels and batteries because you realize whatever gasoline you have, it's going to run out, but the sun keeps coming up the next day. Like if you can get solar, there's nothing you could do to better be prepared for whatever zombie apocalypse or whatever the case might be, right? And that's probably a good example of that. I hope that helps. I don't censor myself. I especially in the live streams, the live streams and my newsletter. Definitely join the newsletter because you'll get the most honest. Like I don't even proofread. I just go stream of consciousness and I hit send. It's also why it takes longer, but my goal is to reach people with the engineering of it, right? This is what's different between me and like a political channel. You can't do what I'm trying to do on a political channel because you're either a Democrat or you're a Republican and everything's black and white. But with engineering, it's just engineering. Engineering is not biased or partisan. There's no political lens to it. It's just great engineering. And if great engineering can solve a problem, then I want people to hear about it. That's kind of the thought process. Maybe I'm overly idealistic, and maybe it's not possible. But I'll tell you right now, for a fact, I've had commenters tell me that they've installed solar or they've done something because they were tired of blank. They don't agree with the climate change, but they got solar because they're tired of their bills. And the way I look at it is, it doesn't really matter what's your motivation. If you do something that is good for the world, then it's good for the world. It doesn't really matter why you did it, right? Raymond says, my Jeep CJ8 needs a trip to EV West. That an old school CJ Jeep would be a cool EV conversion. I thought about doing something like that as well. Thick Wrist McFist says, I'm losing so much respect for this dude. I'd love if you let me, I'd love to know why. Too bad most of that is not true. So leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you're saying. I don't really understand. I'm trying to follow. I don't think you've seen anything else, but I'm guessing he doesn't believe in climate change, which is fine. If, I definitely do. Climate change is a real thing. It's not a hard thought process to go through. Just do the garage analogy, right? If you sat in your gas car in your garage, it would go very badly for you. Now transpose that to 7 billion people on one Earth. Yeah, so Rockhead Regolith. By the way, appreciate you being a member. Really cool. Really appreciate you. I hope you escaped most of the fire. Yeah, from where my house is, I could see a couple of them, and I could see the smoke coming up, but we were okay this time around. Cafe Racer says, I respect 2-Bit for not being one-sided. I appreciate that. So, yeah, one thing I think we all need more of in the world is this idea that, so I'm curious. Okay, so by the way, the nuclear vote is, I'm going to finish this. 68% of you guys, 150 votes, said more nuclear. So surprised by that. So the large majority of you guys are in favor of nuclear, which is really cool. I'm glad to get that data point. Here's a question. This will be another one. Let's see. Here's a question that I'm curious about. When I was young, my dad used to tell me, for my political news, I watch okay, this will be a good one. Okay. My dad always told me that you should watch news from both sides, the one that you agree with more and the one that you don't. And I've always followed this. If you look at my browsing history or whatever, I watch equal parts, like during the election night, for example. I would watch the vote is overwhelmingly none, which is so funny. I mean, that's kind of why I think some of you guys probably watch my channel, is I cover things that happen in a level of depth that the news just doesn't. And that's kind of something I pride myself on. But I try to watch the news on both sides. During the election night, for example, if you watched Fox News and then you switched over to CNN or MSNBC, whatever it is, and you went back and forth, you would believe you were living in two different realities. And I think that gets to the heart of a lot of our problems in the world today, is we increasingly live in echo chambers, and there is no discourse. There is no opportunity to talk about something. And I personally don't like that. If I'm waiting for thick wrist, I'd love for you to let me know what, like I mentioned, what you're losing respect for me. I'd love to know why. I love this kind of thing. I'm curious what his thought process is, and I'd love to chat. I truly love a good debate, not a debate. What do you call it? Like just a good discussion, because odds are I'm probably going to learn from something. But we have to stop doing this, right? We have to try at least to hear and to think and at least get our information from different sources, because otherwise it's too easy to control us. Like if you just watch Fox News, your worldview would be completely different from the person who lives like next door to you, who watches CNN, whose worldview would be way different. It's kind of it's an unfair thing, and it gets to the power that these guys have, especially if they divide you into two camps. You're either Democrat or Republican. Don't do that. I personally don't care for either party. I think they have their issues. I'd love to see a new party. I'd love to see 5 parties. But as long as it's A or B, how easy it is to control us, right? It's easy to just fund this thing or do that thing and make everybody have to fall on one side or the other. That's not my sort of thought process for how we should get to where we need to be. We should try to hear and think and make our own opinions about stuff. Just because I believe in, I believe in this right doesn't mean that I have to automatically agree with that party's views on everything else. That's kind of a dangerous place to be in. So I will always try at least to try to cover things and attract people who don't agree. And if you look at my polls, like I mentioned that last week, or the last time I went live, I ran a poll. 53 or 54% voted for Trump, 46 voted for Harris. Literally the exact makeup of America. If you ran that poll on Fox News or MSNBC, how do you think that would go, right? I was really proud of that. I actually went to bed that night thinking, damn, my dream has always been to at least try to cover interesting things and have a diversity of thought because, multi-source your news, says Beach Crow. That's right. No, this is fun. This is really fun. I know maybe I'm a little bit more, not confrontational, but I love a good, like, I like when someone says I disagree, right? It makes me really interested. It's like, really? Okay, now let me get to the heart of why. Crazy Cut says, I believe it's a type of brainwashing that is happening through social media. Well, it's not really a controversy or it's not a conspiracy theory. That's literally how social media works, right? If you log on to any platform, it doesn't matter, Instagram, whatever the case might be, and you start following a bunch of stories about guns, right? And, hunting, all of a sudden your feed is going to be completely one-sided. If instead you go and you're talking about veganism and searching for recipes for vegan meatballs, your feed will be completely different. You will live in different realities. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's an algorithm trying to give you what you want. But what you should want is diversity of thought. Like, we should want to be challenged. I love football. I watch a lot of football. And then I'll turn around and read about some new thing on, some new engineering story. Or I just try to keep myself diverse. And I think we could all try to do that. Rockhead says, I watched you build your studio real time. This is the example of progress. Yeah, it's, So Malcolm says something interesting. He says, half of the U.S. didn't even vote. That's a problem. Yeah, absolutely. That gets to a bigger problem that we have where, we haven't really had great, inspiring candidates in quite a while. I think, I don't know. I said this in the end of one of my last videos. If you have like a background in science or engineering, consider running for office. Seriously, local level, state, federal, whatever the case might be. It probably, we need to have non-politicians, I think, in office. So I mentioned I like football. U-Haul says KC three-peat. I'll tell you, I kind of thought it was Buffalo's year, but I think you're right. I think they'll beat the Eagles. And U-Haul says Ohio State probably CFP #1 ranked again. I agree. I think in the age of NIL, where you can pay players, Ohio State has I think they have like 60 something thousand students. It'd be very hard to compete with. And I think that the age of Alabama and the SEC will start to kind of dwindle down. We'll see. And Mark says separate electoral votes within the states and you can get more than two parties. Yeah, there's, yeah, I'm not, I try to focus more on the engineering side of things. There's just too much in the world to be on top of everything. I'm not very into politics. I think politics are pretty boring, largely. So it's a bunch of people talking instead of actually doing things. So there might be some answers. There's probably some really smart people you can follow who could give you better guidance on that. But there's got to be a way for us to solve this. We need to have 5 parties because then it's so much harder to control, right? If you're a big billionaire donor, literally 2 camps. Which one lines with you? Give them money. It's harder when you have 5 or 6 or 10. It becomes really difficult to control people. So that's something that we should try to do. Squatch says we just want the Huskers to be good again. I'm guessing you're from Nebraska, and don't be surprised if they. I think they might return to form. Honestly. I kind of have the same feeling I had as the last time I went live. Really appreciate. I'm just looking at the comments and stuff. There's such diversity of the people in here. It makes me, to the earlier gentleman who mentioned that it's a shame that I censor myself. I think this is what I always wanted, and I think it's pretty amazing to see that it's kind of working. So, Fox News 6%, CNN 10%, but largely for this last poll, none, which is pretty amazing. Clearly, you guys are kind of fed up with the news outlets, and I can't blame you. So what do you have to look forward to us from Tuba Da Vinci in 2025? Let's talk a little bit about that. I want to continue to cover really insightful things. For example, our next thing is CERN. It has been a dream of mine since college to go to tour it. And so we just reached out last year. My wife and I were like, let's just reach out. What's the worst they could say? No, we don't want you to come. So we reached out. Within a week, they responded. They're like, hey, just checked out your channel. Looks cool. We'd love to, you want to book a couple days to come out here. Obviously, airfare to Switzerland is not cheap and hotels and all the rest, but they said yes, right? So that was a dream. We're going to go do it in a couple weeks. And we're going to keep doing that. We're going to try to find great stories to remind all of us that there's a ton to be optimistic about. I think the negativity takes front stage, and it's easy because it doesn't take much explaining. To give people a sense of negativity is really easy with a headline. But like our videos, like imagine trying to make somebody optimistic. One of our commenters mentioned about using gyrotrons for geothermal expansion for drilling. How many stories about that have you heard on the news? You never will. That's wildly nuanced and takes a lot of people working really hard and a lot of incredible minds and that's what we don't get covered. So I'll try to keep sharing the great, cool stories that are happening. I think a lot about plastic waste, for example. We have a video planned coming up on companies that are taking on plastic waste in a serious way. There's incredible work happening around the world. There really is. There's never been a time, and I say this every year because it's true, every year is the best year for the amount of money, available research, brilliant minds who are working on the great problems of our world. It's just that we don't hear about them very often because really great breakthroughs are hard. They don't happen very often. But it doesn't mean that people aren't working on it. And eventually it pops to the top when a big breakthrough happens. But it is happening. It is happening, and there's a ton to be optimistic about. I would leave you guys with the idea that, one person wins, one person loses in politics. And it does affect us. I'm not going to lie. I'm not, somebody mentioned the wind turbine permits and pulling them, and, there's going to be changes to EV tax codes and things. So yes, there will be changes, but there's a lot of people in the world doing incredible stuff. And we will try to keep finding them and sharing them. There are some companies that we've been trying to track down and they don't respond or, they haven't yet. We'll keep trying. But CERN is coming up and we have some others. There's a company that I'm meeting with. I got to figure out when actually. There's a company I'm meeting with near Denver, Colorado, who's using AI. And a lot of the AI stuff is these goofy, you ever see that meme where this goofy guys, it's like, hey, I used AI to take this one sentence email and make it an incredibly wonderful 3-paragraph, email. And then on the other side, the guy's like, hey, I used AI to take this overly lengthy 3-paragraph email and just give me a bullet point list. And it's kind of the joke that, it is what it is. But AI is also used in some really interesting ways. One of them is recycling. There's no world where like paying a human to sort through the rubbish and pick out plastics and metals and aluminum, it'll never happen. There's just no way to make that economically viable. But if you had AI that could use cameras, sensors, maybe sounds, and to sort through, and even the plastics, right? There's different levels of plastics labeled 1 through 7, from PET, polyethylene, propylene, high density stuff. If they could sort that and we could find a way to recycle it, all automated in an automated fashion, that's how we would solve our plastic problems. And that's happening, right? So for me, some people have said oh, you kind of have your head in the sand. You don't think about the negative stuff. It's kind of true because at some point we'll all lose our minds if all we do is hear that the world is ending and we're all doomed. But I just keep trying to find all the interesting things that are like, wow, if somebody could solve that, that would be amazing, right? And it is happening. Pablo asked if I'm going to Intersolar in February. I am, or I was supposed to, but now that I'm thinking about it, Pablo, do you know when it is? I'd have to double check. But if I'm in town, yes, I would. I'm definitely going to come. Mike says precocious plastic. Look it up. I will. But Steve Y says the future is bright if you want it to be. Thank you. We all have the power to, like I mentioned, right? Here's a concrete example of very small scale. I'm going to take my team, pay them like a normal day, and we're going to just go looking around the neighborhood and seeing like elderly families who their yards are maybe a little bit out of whack, and just offer like, hey, we'll come in, we'll prune some trees, we'll take all the dead leaves, we'll just help you, because that helps all of us, right? You're only as safe as as all of our neighbors and stuff. So, be the force of good that we want to see in the world. I think there's a lot of value to that, because otherwise, yeah, it's easy to say, this person's in charge, or that changed, or this is bad. The LA fires are going to be one of the worst in terms of pure destructive. Like, it wasn't the largest loss of life event, but in terms of like property damage and stuff, these LA fires will be maybe the worst in American history. So what do we do next? What do we learn from it? What steps can we all take? That's the stuff I'll be thinking about, and I'll be sharing it with all of you. And like I've mentioned before, sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Like I mentioned before, I've been doing this for 7 years, and David Martin says my latest mantra has been community. Man, we're all in the same pale blue marble going around the sun. We're all in this together. It might not be, it's easy to make us all think we're different and this and that. We're a lot less different than you probably realize, and we are. It's a community, man, and I love seeing that. That's one of the outlooks that I've always had. But we can all play our part, do what we can, help neighbors, people who are maybe have a harder time keeping their yards clear, or help people in any way they can. Right? We all have that power to lend a hand and be a part of what we want the future to be. That's kind of my thought process. One thing that we want to do is we've been blessed with our sponsor manager. His name's Yama. He's one of the stars of this place. Like we would not be here as a company if it wasn't for him, because our views are sporadic. We've never made enough money from like YouTube revenue to have a company. But he brings us deals and makes this possible. So first of all, shout out to Yama, who's a legend and a hero around here. We love him. We're going to go do a EV charger install at his house. Totally for free. We're going to surprise him and do it probably next week, because we're in the middle of this battery thing right now. But he keeps the lights on. And I was talking to him. I was like, one thing I feel bad, we're blessed to have all this stuff. Let's do giveaways. So again, tubedavinci.com. When we have cool stuff come our way, we're going to give it away. Previously, it was an Anchor battery and an Anchor solar panel, which one of our viewers won. And we're 4 days. You have 4 days left to enter for a set of 4 E-Range EV tires. They are my new favorite set. I got to get them on my car, my Model S. My wife has them on hers, and yeah. So sorry, I'm just trying to follow the comments here. Jordan says you can't fight a fire in 100-mile-an-hour wind. Doesn't matter how much water you have. So okay, let's talk about that. We can, so there's 100-mile winds, right? But if hydrants were working, like in LA, there were hydrants that were vandalized, that were just pulled off, right? Not working. Reservoirs that were not filled a mile from where the fire started. Sorry, but we should demand more. You might be right. 100-mile-an-hour fires means you can't have air operations. You can't be dropping from the sky. But if fire hydrants worked, and there's things that we should. This again falls into that thing, right? Even in the fire coverage here in LA, it's literally a line you can see from the comments. It's like, don't blame anyone. It's out of our control, or everybody in California sucks and everyone should be fired. There's a world in between those two extremes. There's a world where really unfortunate scenarios came together, right? We had drought, we had no rain. We just got our first rains in like 8 months recently, like yesterday. Santa Ana winds, which is a common occurrence here in Southern Cal, but 100-mile-an-hour winds from Santa Ana's is not very common. So all these really unfortunate things lined up in a very unfortunate way. But there's also government incompetence, and we should demand better from these people. Both things can be true, and they are true. The Santa Ynez Reservoir was empty because of a liner. The liner on top had a rip in it, and they couldn't figure this out for 9 months. Unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. We have to demand more from our governments. We just do. It can't. I mean, I think governments will always be much less effective, much less high performance than private sector because the incentives are just not there. But this is unacceptable. Like we can't have this. We have to demand more, and we all should. Sorry, that one. Yeah, I've been thinking about these fires a lot. But two things can be true. Remember that. So Simon says, designing and maintaining a firefighting system that can handle what is basically a massive forest fire in an urban environment will have truly massive cost. I agree with you. But guess what? California has $220 billion of annual tax income. That's more than all but 55 countries' GDPs. There are 55 countries on Earth that have a GDP higher than California's tax income. California, tax income. Come on. It will cost money, but we should want to do this. We just have to have better priorities and stop wasting money in all the silly ways that we do. Get rid of all bureaucrats, administrators, like reduce the cost. Automate things, have spreadsheets, have AI, less, we have to just be a lot leaner, I think. And as you all mentioned, California is the world's number 7 GDP. These are ludicrous numbers. We just have to want more. We just have to demand it. Probably a topic for another day. Obviously, it's more contentious, but yeah, I think that we can't be so okay with governments being incompetent. We're so used to it. It's like, that's just how it is. Like, why is this how it is? Why are we paying some of these people such amounts of money to do such a poor job? We have to try to demand better, and I think that's more than fair. So David says, 100% agree with you on the fires. I really feel bad for the common folk who couldn't do much about it other than run. I think people tend to forget about their houses among all the celebrities. So when the fires first started, there were some really not our viewers. I've been tracking our comments since it started. Very impressed, blown away at how classy you guys have been, the comments have been. But there was a Reddit post that I saw where people were celebrating the fact that rich celebrities were having their houses burned down. And I remember thinking, that's really sad, man. That's really sad. Love or like or not like somebody, that's a really vile way to look at the world. But you have to remember that like the very next day, the Altadena fire started, and those were very blue collar neighborhoods. Those were not celebrities. That's the thing. Fires aren't they don't discriminate, right? Rockhead Regulus says the 117 million gallon reservoir repair cost was $130,000. Again, it's a liner, right? 130,000 is probably the government price. It probably cost 50,000, but it doesn't matter. Let's say it was 130,000. Do it. Get it done. Get that reservoir back online. Now, people have mentioned, that wouldn't have. The pump rate is not going to be able to maintain how quickly a firefighter can exhaust the water from the hydrant. That's true. But again, that's just engineering. We could have triple the amount of pipes and triple the amount of pumps, have battery backup on site. Even if the power goes down, the power poles fall over, and still have battery backup to be able to run a pump for 10 hours or 20 hours for this much flow rate. These are engineering requirements. This is literally how you build a program in engineering, right? I want to build a new airplane. Okay. It needs to have 1,000 miles of range, carry this much capacity, and fly at this elevation. Like, you lay out the requirements and you build it. We could do that if we had the money and the wherewithal. If we had engineers in politics, that's how we'd approach it. Instead of, people were talking about the LA mayor being in Ghana to sell it, Like these are not. That's not your job. Your job is not to be a to be a celebrity flying around. Your job is to be here. We have to change how we look at politics. Politics and government should be about service. It should be really smart people who have 10, 20, 30 years of experience doing something. For example, I thought about this. You know who should run the water district in LA, or should be the CTO of the company that built this. We have a massive desalination plant here in San Diego, 50 million gallons a day, one of the biggest in the Western Hemisphere. That get their CTO, let him, and if he made enough money in his life, go sacrifice a little bit for 8 years to go into civil service and bring value. The people that we elect know nothing. What would you expect? These are politicians that basically they have the skills like of a used car salesman, right? They're great talkers. Great talking doesn't solve anything. And that's not what we need. We need people who are brilliant, who've held positions where they've learned from, water management or any of the engineering disciplines, who can go and for 8 years sacrifice with a small salary to go bring great insight. That's what we need, and we don't have. We do this all wrong. We let the engineers do all the dirty work with no credit, no love. No one ever talks about us. And then we have these politicians flying around the world, going to galas. Why? Why do we do this? Let's get people who actually know something, who have experience doing something, involved. And a career politician is the most useless thing there is, because you basically know nothing. You've brought nothing into it. Politics should be a place where you land for 4 to 8, 10 years, and then you go back to whatever you used to do. It should be about service and sacrifice. That's the way it should be. Anyway, sorry. Simon says government should run on sound scientific principles. All legislation should have expected measurable outcomes and be revised and repealed if it fails. Wow, what a brilliant sentiment. I can tell Simon probably isn't involved in politics currently. But yes, I agree that there should be some sort of goal and a way to observe and to measure and to monitor the progress and the production and see if we're on track, right? PM says Trump is already a disaster. Hope the U.S. will survive the next 4 years until someone else can clear up his mess. I think we have a pretty mixed feeling on that, but we will survive. The next 4 years, I'm optimistic, are going to be good in interesting ways. We'll see. I don't have a good story for exactly why yet, but I think we'll be okay. So Simon says something. That is the problem. He says that as a former scientist, I find government infinitely frustrating. That's exactly right. Somebody mentioned to me recently that I should run for something. And, it sounds interesting, but I would probably lose my mind with these people and the way they do things. Like I'm not trying to be mean, but I genuinely have no idea what anybody in government does, like day to day. Not a clue. I spent 6 years with the DoD, so I have some experience with government. So probably a topic for another day. But the problem really is the scientific mindset, science engineering. It just does not play with politics, right? We are about observable, measurable, right? Set a goal, did we hit it? Testing, evaluation, optimization. That's the way we think about things. And politics is just about, one thing that made me really angry was Gavin Newsom's Twitter feed was just, every day it was him standing deep in thought in front of a whiteboard at a fire station. It was driving me nuts. Like, this guy he was looking for photo opportunities in the middle of all this. And that's the politician minds, right? It's about perception. It's all the soft skills that engineers and scientists are not known for having. And that is a problem. But hopefully there is better representation, because that's what we need. We could solve these problems. We could do better. We could have better, we could have a more efficiently run government if we had people who had experience with knowledgeable things involved. We don't. Go look at any government, go look at the people, look at their background. What do you expect? I mean, there's nothing more that we can expect from people who don't know much about things to do. And that's kind of the problem. But let's go back to the positive note and wrap this up and just say this year is going to be good. It's been a pretty brutal start, but I was very I was very happy to see the rains finally come. I know now there's like mudslide issues because the soil is so scorched that there's not going to be much absorption, and the water is going to run off. And we have very hilly geography here in California, but and there's also been toxic rain and acid rain and some concerns and stuff. So hope everyone's safe. And it's not just us in California, all of us, right? So I hope all of you guys are having a good start to the year. Be optimistic. Do what you can, right? Like we all have the power to just try to help and be parts of the future that we want to see and build. And politicians equal used car salesmen is a good one. Yeah. Troy says lawyers are educated in theatrics. They need it in court. Right. So the lawyer doesn't learn truth, right? The lawyer learns, the lawyer's job is not to seek truth. It's to get his side to win. That is not the kind of people that should be running a country. But those are the people that currently are attracted to it. But maybe it doesn't have to be that way. It just takes a couple, right? So anybody I've always said, if you're nearing retirement, if you're a scientist, lifelong scientist in academia or in industry, you're an engineer, you're a PhD, if you've done something really novel, you've got like really deep insight, decades of experience, and you're nearing retirement and you can find it in your heart to go run for something for a term or two, and then slowly that pattern kind of persists, we could shift the narrative. That's something that we could change. But career politician are two words that should never belong together. Politics, like office, should be a term or two, and it should be bringing your value, what you've learned from your decades doing X, Y, or Z, and bringing it to the office and leaving it a better place, and then going back, right? That's the way we should be doing it. Yeah, and let me just say, I love you guys. Thank you for letting me do this. This is my third career, you could say, right? I started in aerospace engineering, software. Now I make YouTube videos. But I got to tell you, every time I go live and I see the comments and I engage with you, it's always just rewarding to know how awesome you guys are. And like I said, if you have anything positive or negative, bring it. I love both. I never heard back there was a gentleman who said he was losing respect for me. Sadly, I think he just left, oh no, maybe he's here. Which is a shame, because I'd love to know why. He probably doesn't believe in climate change, and it's like, well, if that's the case, let's talk. I'd love to chat about it, right? It's really fun for me to do this, and I'm always reminded of how lucky I am to have all of you, and I really appreciate it. David says, thank you for all the great content you give us. You are part of the reason I have solar on my roof now. Amazing, David. Amazing. Cafe Racer, by the way, really appreciate you as well. Your first comment, I was thinking maybe you would disagree as well, but I love it. Just great conversations. I'll remember you guys too, and I love a good conversation. And maybe we'll try to find a way to get you guys on these live streams so we can chat in real time. But really appreciate all of you guys. Tom says thank you. This is going to be a good year, guys. Hopefully you guys have been okay so far. Thoughts and prayers for everybody affected there in LA and parts of San Diego and everywhere. It's been amazing to see people come together. Mexico has sent firefighters, Canada, Texas, Idaho. I mean, just all over. Just an amazing thing, man. And those firefighters, what heroes, what freaking heroes. All the pilots that are flying these air operations. It's amazing. We have heroes among us. Don't ever forget that. I know it's easy to be negative and stuff, or think about something negatively, but think about the heroes that we have around the world. I know that brings me some joy. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate all of you. Hope you're having a good year so far. And I promise you, it's going to be a good year. I got a good feeling. And we have a lot of really fun videos planned. Again, 2bitadventure.com. That's where you can support us. We brought everything in house. Join our newsletter. If you want to be a paid member, no pressure. You don't have to do that. Newsletter is free. Giveaways. Keep an eye on the giveaways. Sign up. We don't have a lot of involvement. It's still pretty new, so your odds are really high. They're probably going to get less high in the future, but right now, odds are really high. Come join us, and we want to share all of the blessings that we get, all the cool companies we get to work with. We want to share it with you, and we'll try to do a giveaway once a month at least. And this year, I want to have a really big giveaway at the end of the year. We'll talk more about that soon. All right. Until next, maybe we'll go live again next week. God bless you guys. Take care, and we'll talk soon.